Let's jump into things. Where we at? It is 10:03 on the 24th of April, so Thursday. Coming into the last sort of trading, last week of trading for the month. Well, last calendar week anyway. 7 days, 5 days left, whatever. All right, let's get into things. Start off with gold here. Because look, this thing obviously bang got hammered down yesterday. Had a nice little gap down. Let's go on to the lower time frame because you can really sort of unpack this bit a little bit more. Actually, we didn't even get the didn't show the gap on here. Here we go. Yeah, so it doesn't look so dramatic on this one here, but it was quite a turbulent session yesterday for a bit of a sort of reversal of what we have been seeing. So we had that big gap down and that, and I actually had a great position through here. So yeah, I mean, I got rocked through this gold trade, but luckily I sort of shorted this break of the channel, woke up, or sort of looked at it, and we were down in like the sort of 20s or the 30s. So I really sort of maximized this sort of move down here. Rally quite strong, and then obviously bang sold into a couple of times moving down through here. So look, I think we could sort of be due for a little bit of a rally up and that. Yesterday was quite a dramatic, and this is what I was saying, that it was quite turbulent because, big gap down, massive rally up, bigger sell down, up, boom, and breaking through the lows, through the lows, through the lows. So, we have seen this one, two, three kind of drive down to the bottom here. I wouldn't say this is enough to call this a sort of full proper trend, but should this be where the sellers are moving, well, you saw quite a push up sort of on the open this morning. So let's get rid of that 'cause it's a negative divergence line. This color sounds good. All right, so look, you could say that, okay, here's a little trend there, the market selling down, and yes, came through and bang, opened up and sort of jumped up here quite sort of dramatically. So 87 up to 15, excuse me, sort of through the morning session there. So just 2 seconds. Right, just had to sort of finesse a position. Um, so yeah, look, you can say that this is a bit of a pullback. It's broken through this little trend here. I think this could sort of see a little bit of a push up, but as I said, I think pretty much the sort of tides have changed. We've had, this sort of more relaxation on the idea of the tariffs and that, and I think this is what's due for a little bit of a sort of continued pullback. Doesn't mean necessarily that, we're going to undo the full move. Certainly at one stage, yes, I'm looking at this thing. I mean, you look at this on a daily. Um, and this is like quite a dramatic sort of push down, or even, hold on, wait, the weekly doesn't quite give it, does it? No, but it was looking quite dramatic, and you could definitely see this thing sort of cooling off a little bit more. So, look, I am sort of in the belief that at least we're sort of due for a 3160 sort of test and touch up at some stage here. Though I would expect this maybe to sort of put in a little bit of a rally. So, yesterday we had that dramatic sort of push up. It doesn't look so dramatic on these pushes here, but this bounce from the lows there. That was like $74 push from the lows up to where it just got sold into, close that gap, and then bang, sort of smack down again. And I think this is the thing, it's sort of like, you still got to get used to the idea, or at least at the moment, while we're up here, while we're above sort of, 30, well, let's call it 3,000 or so, that, these moves, you're going to get 50, $60 swings. Like I covered this yesterday or most of these days. You just do not get these typical, like if you trade gold, that's not how gold moves typically. It's gold's moving like GJ, like a yen pair. Like it is absolutely flying around. So, you can look at it and then sort of set your position, and then all of a sudden it's $20 higher, 15 minutes later. So look, these things are quite so dramatic, but I think sort of, as I said, if we go back to a higher kind of time frame with these sort of things, as I said, I'm not a Elliott wave sort of person, but I think this would be your, as I said, one, two, three, four, five. Correction. Oh wait, let's put that there. Correction. One, two, three. That's my kind of sort of feeling of how this should work. Not necessarily to come up to this price level over here, but I would say possibly we could look up around this sort of like, between 33.30, 33.50 um, to sort of get a little bit of a rally and then sort of push back down. So the way that I would sort of look at these sort of things is we saw this dramatic push up yesterday and then bang, got sold into. Market's going to be expecting, people do be expecting that again. They're going to see that this trend's broken. People love buying. Gold was super bullish, remember. It actually held the 38%. If you have a look at this on the daily, it actually closed and held this support line here. Yeah, pushed down underneath. But as you can see, that was a little bit of a sort of previous kind of channel, sort of resistance sort of point. Probably I should make that a little bit closer in there. That little breakaway channel kind of retesting the top side of that area. But the main sort of thing is that, look, it sort of pushed up and actually sort of managed to close and hold that 38%. Now, if you're a bull, you'll sort of like, yeah, buy dips, 38%, bang, that's continuation for you. You're thinking, okay, look, we're in this mode. Here's leg one, leg two. Now let's get ready, leg three, and you're going even higher. That's the mentality, I believe, with these sort of trades at the moment. Though I think sort of if we get down onto the shorter time frame, which is obviously sort of what I trade, I think more likely what we're going to see is because this move got pushed up and then sold into, it's going to set up something similar like this. You've got the pullback here, you've got the 38%, bang. It's a lot of things lining up to say, hey, yeah, let's buy this. This is going higher. I think it'll move up. Market will expect it to be sold into again, partly because, you've broken this big trend down here, and then it'll push up again and then sell down. So I think there's room to sort of maybe squeeze out a couple of the elusive sort of positions through here, which means you could get that push and a bit more of a sustained push up here because, this, although, this is on the 1 hour, we had 3 hours of growth here and then bang, got slammed down. I think this could definitely sort of push up, test some of these sort of stops. People that are shorting these things, they remember these people sort of what they'll do is they'll put their stops like here. Yep, broke that low, came up. Okay, yep, let's move our stop. Let's put it down here. Yep, put that so like you know what I mean. Like they'll sort of trail it down like this, and I think there's room to sort of maybe sort of like with this move here to sort of come back up, take out some of the sort of looser stops. I don't think this is going back up here, but take out some of these looser stops and then sort of resume this sort of more downward trend towards that sort of 31, whoop, towards that 3160 and 61% retracement level. So I think some sort of short upside here. Have it look like it's going to repeat yesterday because that's an easy trade. We move up, we sell into it. We move up, we sell into it. We move up, people get ready to sell into it, they get short, and it goes up again. So it burns those early positions on those ones and then sells into it and then sort of moves down. So I'm not going to be jumping on anything too early. I think sort of like, we could see a little bit of a move up and then maybe around that sort of like, 33.50, 33.60. Oh, Jesus. Those alerts coming through the headphones. Oof. Wow. um, so bear with me 2 seconds. All right. So yeah, look, as I said, I'm not going to be sort of first one to jump to this thing, but I am sort of looking for a little bit of a lower move. I think sort of it's probably more sustainable if you're a sort of buyer, to sort of be looking around this retest level. I mean, if you have a look at that sort of reaction that we had from that previous structural level, that's what started this whole big massive run. You know what I mean? This is coming back down to those previous highs at 29.59, and then bang, 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 we've moved up over here. So look, it's certainly sort of in a bit of a corrective mode, but obviously even within these corrective modes, it can have fluctuations with it also. It's just about sort of obviously trying to sort of pick the main theme. Are we sort of in a pullback to sort of go lower? Are we just in a pullback to recharge to go up higher? I don't think so because realistically, the landscape's changed a bit here. We're seeing a cool, like the main driver through this was uncertainty and, tariffs are coming and all this kind of jazz. And that's fine and all very well. But, what we're seeing now is that sort of Trump sort of wound that stuff back a little bit. I think even that Powell sort of situation, I think sort of again adds to a little bit of uncertainty, and the market's just gone like, oh, well, we're not sure about this. This is another thing, and they just bought it up, bought it up, bought it up. Those two drivers, they're not fixed, but they're reduced, and you can see this as a sort of representation in the chart here. It's not fixed. We're not down at 3,000. It's reduced. Gold's pulled back quite significantly, $250 from the highs. And this is what I say, you got to get used to the idea that, at least at the moment, gold can put in um, some incredible sort of days, $100 days. And that's certainly what we're seeing here at the moment. So gold pushing up a little bit at the moment. We'll just sort of see how this one sort of flows through. One thing to obviously, which I'll get to in a moment, is DXY, to sort of keep that in mind as well. So we'll see how that one sort of plays on. All right, so where are we at? Of course, we'll have a look at Aussie because Aussie is coming down now, finally, around those sort of support levels. So obviously we've got a bit of buying action around this 50s level. I think sort of underneath here, again, there's a lot of layers for the support here. You can call these a couple of little levels through here, but I think ultimately this big horizontal underneath sort of 63.20 is what's going to see that sort of further sort of push back down. So we're seeing a little bit of a sort of push up in DXY, as I mentioned a second ago. Obviously, I always have to sort of preface this sort of thing with saying that Aussie's not part of DXY. I get that, but the thing is that, DXY, use it as a barometer for USD buying across the board. Aussie's not always going to sort of respect it, but it's not going to be immune from these things as well. So you can really sort of use these things to get an idea about how the market's reacting with US dollar. And certainly, you know what I mean, Aussie at the moment is a lot of its correlations are completely out. I said yesterday that, it's been disregarding um, the indices. And we saw a big push up on the indices overnight, off all that sort of power news and all this kind of stuff, the China news. I think at one stage Nasdaq was up like sort of 4% or so. So I need to fix this alert. um, but we've sort of seen that even with sort of supposedly risk on moves and equity markets moving up, Aussie's just going inverse to that. So you can't use Aussie against sort of equities to sort of say, hey, look, yep, that's where they're moving it at the moment. So 2 seconds. All right, and I'm back again. So Aussie sort of really, as I said, if we look on the higher time frame, gives you a bit of a better picture with this kind of stuff here. Look, it sort of moved up here. I was surprised that the recovery was so strong, to be honest. And it was very grindy up along here. You can see it a lot more on the daily, that it's really sort of just like sort of smaller, 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 smaller. Yesterday, it gave a big sort of push right up in here. But again, you can see bang markets here, bang markets here, bang markets here, and it's selling down, selling down, selling down. RSI is overbought, sorry, looking like it wants to sort of curl over. I think sort of certainly, take out that lower wick around that sort of 50 level or 46 or whatever we had it at, underneath the 23 fib, and I think this could see a nice sort of play just down into this buy zone. So back around that 50%. I think sort of, previously we've seen some support through here, probably more of a sort of solid support and level around this sort of, 6150 level. And then we could sort of see, maybe we could see a better move to sort of move up like this, and as we've been looking for, sort of through last couple of sessions. But it's holding in there. It's holding in there very well. But I think finally we're seeing sort of DXY make a bit of an effort off the lows because I mean, look, US dollar has just been sold at all costs the last couple of weeks, really. Like it's been getting absolutely smashed. I think there's a point where that's just going to become so cheap. We get a couple of these headlines change. You know what I mean? Like the China sort of tariff thing sort of cools off a little bit. People start to go, oh, hold on, wait, maybe we are a little bit over positioned. And even if it's a short term bounce or move, maybe we could see some profit taking. And people sort of peel back their positions a little bit. So that's going to result in US dollar buying across the board. If you look at Aussie compared to sort of some of its other sort of USD crosses, so if we have a look at say, I mean Euro is a good example, but that's starting to pull back, and this is what I said in yesterday's video that there's a very stark difference if we look at put them side by side. put Aussie on here, you can see a big difference here between the two. Let's put this, I don't know, weekly, 4 hour, actually, let's make this a daily as well. Yeah, both on daily. You can see a big difference between these two charts. Both USD crosses, but as you can see, Aussie is at the bottom of its trend, and at best, it survived from just going down to sort of COVID lows of 55, whereas Euro is at multi-year highs. So Euro obviously sort of makes up a larger sort of percentage of those of the DXY. So if this thing starts to sort of cool off a little bit, and remember, it's at sort of multi-year high, so it doesn't mean it's okay coming back down over here. But if they're going to start to sell euro and buy some US dollar, that'll pull this chart back. What do you think is going to happen to Aussie? I mean, Aussie's not exactly sort of in a position where it's like sort of way up above multi-year highs. I mean, if anything, we're above multi-month highs. It's very much susceptible to seeing some US dollar buying, euro selling coming down here, and I think we could see the same thing happen with Aussie just down here to the lower end of it all. And this is why I've been targeting that sort of 61.50 to 62 kind of level, because I think that sort of like, there's a little bit of rebalancing. While we see euro sort of pull back here a little bit, I think Aussie could also obviously pull back a bit, and then the market goes, okay, yeah, let's resume with what we're doing and push this thing a little bit higher. And I think that that's sort of starting to play out. I mean, to me, that Aussie looks like it just wants to just roll over. Not necessarily sort of like die and come all the way back down to these lows, but certainly I think, you could sort of look at, as I said, around that 50% retracement. I think could be definitely a little area where we could sort of look and give it a bit of a tester for some longs. All right, let's get back to what business. Where are we at? So silver actually had an exceptional night overnight. If you get a lower time frame, it had been butting its head along this line, and it just popped up, and it's consolidating with a little ascending triangle. It looks like here, up at the highs. So this is looking like it wants to push again. This was one of my best trades, this move through here, and then hand it back a bunch. Try to sort of get the bottom side move through here. So, look, there's some people that would have bought and just, not my style, bought and held this whole move up through here. Amazing stuff. Not for me. But at the moment, if we look at this just in the context of where it's at, it looks like a little ascending triangle, wants to move up a bit higher. This move through here was, partly sort of stop related as well, I believe, because if you think about it, like, you've been building up a level here where, short, put my stop above the high, survived. Okay, add some shorts, stop above the highs, add some shorts. Once that went, poof, just fired up here through and consolidating in a little ascending triangle at the top up here. So look, a breakup from here should be actually quite substantial. Like, probably looking at a move, probably back up towards 34.50, which is right back up at the highs pretty much. That's an incredible recovery. Not for me at the moment. I'm not trading this. But if you have, well done. I think certainly. So it's a little OCD status there. Yeah, whatever. Bang. Certainly. Yeah. If you've been trading this and you've actually caught these moves, that's amazing stuff. But yeah, it's hard to sort of get a read. I mean, look, everything's been hard to get a read on recently. But I guess sort of like if you're looking at this at some sort of fundamental level, appearing back on sort of trade wars means that okay, production's not going to necessarily get so hammered. I think sort of silver's very much wearing its manufacturing hat opposed to precious metal hat at the moment. And I think sort of like that China US sort of trade you know, headbutting, that cooling off is the green light for them to go, okay, well, you know what, it's actually probably not as bad as we thought. Let's sort of jam it up a little bit because we see sort of better things on the horizon and maybe some you know, not as strong slowdown as previously priced in. So to me, that's kind of probably the reason that you've sort of seen this move up. Just sort of at the same time looking at a couple of things with like copper not reacting as well as silver. Silver very much of the metals has been the outperformer. We're seeing gold move off the lows at the moment, as I covered a second ago, and obviously silver's just sort of stalling here. But yeah, certainly it's the only one that's sort of breaking like significantly higher at this little short-term period. Of course, you know, gold has been the major player, but in terms of like overnight sessions and this kind of stuff, silver's very much been the one that sort of exploded on that news and reacted quite well to that sort of news, basically. Yeah, headlines. So look, in terms of silver, I think you got to respect the fact that look, it has broken out through here. You need to me, you kind of need a little bit of sort of continued headlines to sort of keep this sort of thing rolling. Uh, I'm not looking to buy it here at the moment. I think you're coming back into a very busy kind of congestion area that we had going back, geez, only a couple of weeks ago. But certainly, I think you know if you get a break above sort of say 33.70, just to be on the safe side, I think you could move back up into these areas over here. Completion of this move, maybe you have to sort of see, but yeah, I think it's certainly something to keep an eye on. Should all this stuff get quashed and sort of put to bed, I think that you know that could be the catalyst to get sort of major breakouts for silver, and we're talking over the next month or so. Cool. Move along. We got DXY. So this very much, yeah, we saw this big break from the wedge. Put it on the 4 hour so we can see a bit better. So we had that wedge play out the other day. Got the big break, back test, fresh high overnight. Typical kind of thing we've seen with Asia. You know, we've seen it all the way through, but at least with yesterday as well. Asia comes online, they buy a bit of gold, they sell US dollar. The inverse relationship between US dollar and gold seems to be coming back in effect, which is good. It means we could sort of rely on these things a little bit more. We're back up into this little chop zone that we had. Needs to come out the top side. If it comes out the top side, if we see a sort of repeat of yesterday's price action, which is, you know, big move up on US dollar into the end of US session, sell down, kind of do not a great deal through sort of Asia and even part of Europe, and then sort of kick on. If we see a repeat of this today, it means we got a little bit of sort of lower move in US dollar here. That'll go in line with gold moving up a little bit, and then they start to kick it in and move it up. This, as I said, is the area that you want to see it move above. It's got to get above 140, in my opinion, because I think that'll then sort of force this into being a bit of a sort of a fake out, and then that could give us our breakout to the top side and first target looking at 140. Because this thing has, I mean, obviously, if you look at it, it's just been absolutely bashed. So even if it is to go down further, and this is what I always say, even if you're like, okay, yep, we're going down to the next levels down 94, 95, you know, it's much better to sell it from 102 than it is to sell it from 98. So yeah, we expected to get a little bit of sort of support around this area. We got 10 points from that sort of level, and market agreed to push back in. RSI, slight little negative divergence through here. I'm not a big fan of this particular negative divergence. The buying pressure has come in there a little bit more, but so many lows in between this level here where it wasn't really sort of respecting this last one here. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see how we go. But main thing I'm looking for is if it pops out a top side of 140, for this to be a little bit of a fake out, I think it'll start to get people panicked a little bit and start to sort of squeeze those positions a little bit. So looking for a repeat of yesterday, sort of not much through Asia. They look to be sort of buying gold up here a little bit, as I said. I think that'll sort of you know stump any sort of potential moves with US dollar early. But you know, should we get a body fill down here, Because remember, this is kind of like a bit of a range. Well, it is a bit of a range. If we can see that they are going to give it another shot here, and then you could almost sort of see, oh, there we go, a little bit of this move here. We haven't really got up to the neckline here, so close, but not really. I probably want to see a little bit of a push up. So this is the thing doing these charts and that. I sort of, I mean, I'm going through them and sort of having a look at these things as they're coming up as well. They're not preconceived notions, but potentially, look, if okay, let's go through step by step. If we can see the buyers hold this level here again, so we've seen them here. Okay, seen them here, seen them here. We broke through. You got to see, are they still keen at this level here? Because yes, you've broken through, but you want to see that. So they've gone, okay, yep, let's buy it, let's buy it, let's let it through, fake out. Back here, gives another chance to buy it and hold this level through here. So a downside move to say, 99.4, I could see this as moving up a little bit. First rejection from this level, 125 thereabouts, is a like little sort of cross horizontal here. I wouldn't be too stressed about because, as I just said, it's pointed out yesterday, you could be looking at a bit of an inverted head and shoulders. Both of these moves are predicated on 99.4 or thereabouts holding. So I said yesterday it's got to bounce from some 98 level, got a 98.8 bounce back up. So any downside here, I'm not sort of concerned about. If you take out 98.8, then I'd call this a fail, and then you're moving back down. Market's just too much on top of it all. But a move down here early, see what the buyers do. If they're keen at this level to regain this level like they had previously, we could be seeing this as a push up through here. Any sort of rejection from this level over here, not too worried about, because as I said, this could just be setting up for an inverted head and shoulders, which if we did actually play that one out, just to get another idea, just using the body fills, gives you a price target about 102. So look, there's a bunch of different areas where we could see this thing sort of justifiably get sort of knocked back. But I think certainly at the moment, a little bit of sort of push down early could provide us with some entries. As I said, gold pushing up a little bit, US dollar a little bit under pressure. But once they start to see some buying come in here, I'd be looking to sort of sell into sort of gold positions because I think that inverse relationship is coming back with these two. And that's what I've been saying, that like, the reason it's been so hard to trade, or at least for, myself and the style in which I trade recently, is because all these sort of relationships and correlations have just been completely out of whack. I mean, you even saw it a second ago. I mean, Aussie is very much at its lows when risk is rallying. I mean, copper's been bouncing right back. Aussie bounced back, but now is stuttering a little bit while copper's still kind of near its highs. So, once these things sort of fall back into line, it'll be a little bit clearer to sort of get some of these trades off again. Excuse me. So, that's potential inverse head and shoulders there. I want to see what happens with the buyers at 99.4. Should we see a little push down there? But I do think we are going higher with DXY. And if we just actually have a bigger look at this, and we take this whole move down here to here, we can start to see that where these sort of fibs line up with as well. Of course, it depends the speed in which these things come into it. But again, this 102 area is starting to look a little bit more like an area which the market might try and drive it towards, and then before it sort of decides to try and sell it again. But this goes in line with the idea of getting Aussie back down to that 62 level, and then sort of seeing a bounce recovery. Same thing with gold potentially getting down to that 61% retracement before they give it another go again. So if all these things sort of work as they should, sort of in unison, yeah, we could see a little bit of US dollar buying, gold cooling, Aussie cooling before we resume this kind of more overall trend. All right, fly along. We've got copper. Copper, again, same as silver. It's just been absolutely powering on. So it does look like it wants to get up. It's interesting. It's sort of like just where that little bounce high got to, just underneath that there. So it hasn't quite got to that sort of gap close. I go from the body fill for the gap closes. I don't really like using just the wicks. But it has been powering on here a little bit. So yeah, very strong with this V-shaped recovery here. But again, I'm still looking for US dollar buying, which I think is going to put pressure on these metals a little bit. But you know, again, same with silver. The fact that you know things are sort of elevating a little bit is probably better for copper. So the more that we sort of see things sort of you know sort themselves out, I think the more we could sort of see copper in the long term or medium term at least move a little bit higher. If I was to do it, I'd like to buy this, actually. I think this is more of a move for me. I think sort of some downside here, and then look for the buyers to step back in as we've seen them previously around this level here. So if we look at this in terms of a bounce, that'll give you a 38% retracement here with an overshoot potentially down to the 61. Should it really sort of start to sort of come down here a little bit more. But yeah, for the time being, I'm holding fire. I'm looking for some pullback here. So I'd like to sort of get long. I think that it's shown that, you know, the change of the landscape, you know, that's fine. But I think sort of, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe some ABC correction with this bounce here as well. And finally with China and China. Excuse me. Still finding support just in this little box. No close outside. And you see that the market said, look, we tried to move out, buyers stepped in and it's held it on here. I think a sort of break of this wick here now, because this was a test outside. That could be a sort of an early indicator that we could be going a little bit lower here. I do still think it's due for this push up over here, but again, you know, your guess is as good as mine as to sort of what the PBOC are going to do and how they're going to react to this kind of stuff. But again, it's back into it. Typically, it's a grind kind of currency, and this is what we're seeing here at the moment. Look, it comes down, test support, bang, they're buying it up, pushing it up over here. I think this could potentially just sort of continue on for a little bit more. So this, whoops, this kind of thing. So I'm not expecting a great deal. While this is sort of pushing up here, I think this is going to, again, sort of, you know, put a bit of pressure on Aussie, and also put a little bit of sort of downward pressure on gold. Because basically, again, look, it's US dollar against the yuan here, so it's going to be US dollar buying, along with DXY, along with Aussie coming down, along with gold coming down, these kind of things. So I'd imagine this to just continue grinding sideways till we get some more clarification about what's actually happening with these trade deals. I think I saw Xi and Trump are apparently having a chat next month early. So I mean, we're 1 week away from the end of the month. So you know, you could see some resolution through there. But again, this is the little box. Once we get a breakout and a close outside either side of this, I think that'll give us our direction to go towards our respective targets, 736 or 722. And I think that's it for the charts. Cool. Yeah, gold silver ratio, I suppose. Have a quick little look at this one. It really tried. It looked like it was like, here we go, bang, we're breaking, going up, and then just slammed. So this is again another reason why you've probably seen silver a little bit sort of outperforming gold here because of this one sort of pushing down. Gold, as we're sort of seeing at the moment, finding a little bit of resistance. See if it can sort of hold that level. We can see a little bit of US dollar buying. Cool. All right, and on to any sort of news that we have. So again, Bit of PMI data overnight, but nothing sort of super. Bulletin. What's this? 10:40 now, so still 50 minutes off till this one. Yeah, so overnight we had sort of services down a little bit on in the US, but manufacturing above expectations, plus also revised previously up a little bit higher as well. We also had where is it? The housing data. So this also beat, and this is what I was saying yesterday. It's sort of like a couple of well-timed headlines, a couple of slightly better than expected bits of data, and you start to see the US dollar sort of firm up a little bit. So where are we at here now? So moving through, we haven't got a great deal. We've got nothing through Asia coming out here. Nothing really of note. Unemployment claims. This has been a pretty snooze fest. It's pretty much on the mark within 5 or 10,000 each time. And they're pretty good. They get the numbers very close. So you got durable orders, goods orders later on tonight, 10:30. God, I love this time of the year for that sort of sense that your data comes out 10:30, not 12:30 every night. Um, Again, look, these numbers looking to sort of if orders are moving up and that. Okay, so a bit of a sort of inverse kind of numbers here. You're looking sort of the core goods pushing down a little bit, durable goods sort of month on month pushing up a little bit. If these numbers come in stronger, that's a bit of a jump up there. If we sort of see this not as bad with the core as well, I think that's another sort of little tick in the US dollar strength kind of thing. And this is what it says, sort of like, it feels like, the markets are, it's definitely selling things down. Sorry, it's got every reason in the world to sell US dollar, no reason to buy it. Then the landscape changes a little bit. We get some headlines about Trump and China. We get the Jerome Powell headline. We get these little snippets of US data where it's not as bad as you sort of thought, and the momentum shifts, and we start to see some little push through. Look, it's not going to be the turnaround story because durable goods go up or the unemployment claims hit their mark. But it does mean that, for that brief sort of like period, whether it be like a week or so, we could see people start to give it a shot and justify some sort of like buying of the US dollar again. And this will give us that little push up before they start to go, hold on, wait, no, things are stuffed, and they sell it back down. So it's just about sort of getting that timing right with it, of course. Tomorrow we do actually have Anzac Day in Australia, so New Zealand, Australia. You got I don't know if they call it Liberation Day or something like this, or something to do with the Nazis or something in Italy as well. So, a couple of holidays across the board there. Look, I don't think it'll really sort of make too much of a difference, to tell you the truth, sort of with the market. I think that you might see a little bit quieter through Asia, but again, look, it's not really the major player or the major mover sort of through Asia and certainly through US sessions as well. But apart from that, pretty light on the news. All right, that's it from me.